Hello and welcome to AMC Jedi Council. I'm Christian Harloff, a.k.a. Darth Harloff, and this is the show where we talk everything Star Wars, everything in the canon universe. That means everything related back to the movies in some way or another. Joining me today, it's a little bit of a different council. We don't have any queens on this council, but we do have Mark II D2. Mark Ellis, what's up?
I can totally be a queen. Hi, everybody. You can just call me Maud for the duration of this episode.
You'll be the Freddie Mercury of this council.
And joining us always is the AMC movie editor-in-chief. He is John Campia, a.k.a. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hey guys, I am so ready to geek out today. I got my Game Master screen. I got my role playing. I got my dice. I got my character sheet. I got my pencils. I am ready to go today, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a day that will be long remembered.
Very nice. It's going to also be a very interesting address to council. We'll get into that in a little bit. There's a reasoning for all this stuff here. But if you're brand new to the show, here's how it works. Pretty simple. We have a couple segments on the show where we break down what's going on in the world of Star Wars. And the first it's simple. It's the Star Wars news stories. Everything in the movie news for Star Wars this week. Bit of a slow week, but that didn't stop us. We still got some cool stuff to talk about. And because he is playing the role of Maud, sticking with the role playing today, Mark II D2 will be reading off the stories today.
Yeah, well, we actually have some big news in the world of Rogue One anyway. The Star Wars spin-off movie, the anthology film, its cast got a little bit thicker this week, gentlemen, with the addition of Diego Luna. You guys probably know him from the Oscar Award-nominated Milk and The Terminal and Elysium, amongst other things. He's added to the cast of Rogue One. He will be starring in Rogue One. Christian, what do you have to say about this news?
I love it. I know we talked about it a little bit on AMC Movie Talk today, and I really think what they're doing well, Disney, Lucasfilm, is that they're adding acting ability, acting talent. They're not just going after star power. And Diego Luna is a guy, and he's not, and like you said with Elysium, he's been in the sci-fi world before. And especially in Elysium's a great example because even though I didn't love the movie, but talking about him, he was good in the film. He fits into that. What Rogue One's going to be about is this war film, and he's been there. He's done it. He's a seasoned actor for as young as he is, and he's going to bring a lot. I think that he's from what you hear about him, he's a very giving actor. And so to be able to bounce off of Felicity Jones, I love it. The cast they're putting together thus far it's great. But John, how are you feeling about it?
I feel really good about it. I liked it from the beginning, but mostly because it was. Once again, they're showing they don't need to go star power. They need to go with talent power. And in Diego Luna, that's what they got. They got big talent power. And you can just tell right away, look, Felicity Jones, yeah, she's coming off some Oscar buzz, but she's still not a household name. You look at some of the other people like Mendelsohn or whether it's a number of the other cast members. Claflin is another one.
Riz Ahmed also added too.
Right.
Yeah.
No, none of these names are household names, and I like that. That's kind of going back to the spirit of what George Lucas originally did. So I'm very excited about it, and it's going to be really neat to see too. I cannot picture in my head, and I like this. I can't picture in my head what the dynamic between Luna and Felicity Jones is going to be like. I mean, that's I just can't see it, and I'm excited about that because the first time I'm really going to experience this is on the big screen. So I like the casting a lot.
Yeah, and when we were at Star Wars Celebration, you heard Edwards talk about this film, and he said he wants to make a war movie. Yeah. You're getting that feel, and you're recruiting people that, again, are top-level talents, but they're not necessarily big names. And we were talking about this on AMC Movie Talk. It was like, look, that's what Star Wars has always been able to do. Yes, Harrison Ford is one of the greatest actors of all time. He's hugely famous now. When he was cast in Star Wars,
he was a carpenter.
He was a carpenter who did American Graffiti.
Reading lines who got cast by accident.
And so Star Wars makes stars out of actors as opposed to hiring them to come in and make their movie bigger. You don't need anything bigger with the Star Wars name already. So I think they're going in the right direction.
Well, let's speculate a little bit here because you said you're curious of what he could play. Obviously, I think he'll be one of the rebels.
Yeah.
Now, this was a fan. I'll give all credit to this fan. I wish I remembered the Twitter handle because it got me thinking. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be true, but it's interesting. What if Diego Luna, if he's playing, let's say he plays Felicity Jones' love interest, which I don't think he probably will. I think Sam Claflin would probably be cast as love interest. But if Diego Luna was, in fact, cast as the love interest, what if they ultimately became the parents to Poe Dameron? It's interesting. If you match it up, it could make sense because of the heritage and everything too. It might work. Do I think that that's the case? No, but I like the fun speculation.
The timeline shapes up well.
Yeah,
I mean, this is taking place closer to Episode 4 than going away from Episode 3. So you're right. That does make sense. Anytime. Look, romance is a big part of the Star Wars universe. We all know that. If you're going to fall in love with somebody, get ready to say the two words, "I know." However. I don't know that he's going to be the love interest of anybody. You're right. I think that role would go to Sam Claflin because that guy's so good looking. You hate him for it. And I think that Riz Ahmed, I think that he's also going to be somewhat of a rebel. He might even be in the same kind of role that he was in Nightcrawler, which he was fantastic in that as the intern to creepy Jake Gyllenhaal. So maybe he's the young apprentice rebel to what Diego Luna has already established in the now being newly formed rebellion.
I hate that theory. I hate that. I'm not discounting it as possible.
Yeah.
I hate it because all it does is it smells of it smells of the prequels. It's like, oh, wait a minute, we're in different time periods. We got to make everything connect. Make sure everything has a connection. So wait a minute, young Anakin Skywalker, he built C-3PO. Yeah, let's do that. we have Clone Army. Let's have one of them made Boba Fett. Yeah, let's do that.
It's kind of like what you were saying last week with if indeed they had made Finn Calrissian.
Yes.
Yeah. And but you know what we forgot last week?
What was that?
And the fans definitely let us know about it. We both said that Lando Calrissian, he's the only black guy in the series. And finally,
in the real series.
In the series.
Yes,
and we forgot about Mace.
Jackson.
We forgot Mace Windu.
Mace Windu and the captain of the Queen's Guard.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's that too. But yeah, I just don't want them to do it because this is not just a big city. It's not just a big country. It's not just a big world. This is the galaxy.
Right.
There doesn't have to be connection between everything. Please don't do that.
But you're right. Anthology has a tricky thing to do because Anthology, you want to start to get away from just the Skywalker stories. They're doing it the right way initially because they're kicking off with a story that we all have a little bit of familiarity with. I can even call my mom and say, hey, you remember how A New Hope started? And she'll know that it's because the rebels stole the Death Star plans.
Yeah.
So showing us that on screen is going to be great. But I think they're also going to make a conscious effort to go away from the fact that you don't have to say, hey, you know that Skywalker guy? Or, hey, remember that Solo guy who was here last week?
You don't have to connect everything.
Yeah.
It's true. All right, Mark, what's next?
Billy Lord, Christian. She has
I've heard of her.
She is not playing young Leia, and I know you've heard of her as well. In a recent interview, she said that she will not be playing young Leia. It does seem that she will have some sort of significant role, but what do you think about the news that she will not be playing Leia in a flashback?
Well, first of all, I got to give props to StarWars7News.com, who really has this particular story has just been on it, like updating every single time she says something. They've been really great, and they've been great with promoting the show. So, I like.
And as the journalist of the show for today, I probably should have said, "Thank you, Star Wars 7."
No, because they do take stories from all over the internet, but they've just been so great with promoting this show and putting it together. So I wanted to give them a shout out. But as far as Billy Lord goes, there has been a lot of rumors about flashbacks in general in this movie.
Yeah.
Now, do I think those are going to happen? Yeah, JJ likes the flashback. That's cool. That's fine with me, and I wouldn't mind seeing whether it be Vader or whoever else, or even a young Leia. But I happen to believe that Billy Lord is not playing young Leia. I don't know if you necessarily need to see young Leia. Maybe you will, but I'm going to believe her. I don't know if there's so much. If you're going to fool us at the end, you find out that she was just like, oh, you got us. It's like, who cares? Either tell us you are or you're not. You're not giving away a story, but that's how I see it. John?
I totally believe it. I do totally believe that because I got no reason not to. But you just show me this picture, and you even suggest to me the rumor that she's playing young Leia. Obviously, you'd buy into it.
Right.
I mean, look at that. I mean, that's freaky.
Right.
But there's no reason not to believe when they come out and say, hey, let's just set the record straight, not playing. Now, then again, this is a film by J.J. Abrams, who loves to lie to his audience. I mean, it's like, Khan? No, there's no Khan in this movie. No. He loves to lie to his audience, all for the right reason. He likes to keep the surprise and everything. But I really don't feel like we have any reason not to believe it, so I buy it.
Well, because Khan is such that's a big lie. This is such a little lie that nobody really cares if it's not true.
Yeah.
Mark?
That's also a huge story point in Star Trek 2 that you don't want to give away going into it. So if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry. But I think with her playing young Leia, I think that this could still happen. I think that when you get somebody who isn't she's not the most seasoned actress in the world yet. She's young. She hasn't been in a whole lot of interviews yet. So maybe you do clam up and you do get nervous if you're part of a project and there's such a shroud of secrecy and you don't want to give anything away. So the tendency might be just to go the other way and just be like, no, I'm definitely not doing that. Because maybe that's what you are doing.
Right.
Now, I don't need flashbacks at all in this movie. There was a flashback. I agree with you, John. If I saw a picture of her, I mean, you look at her next to Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
That's totally young Carrie Fisher.
That's the young fish.
Yeah,
right.
you could. Well, that's true.
So I don't need that, but sure. I mean, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt for now.
Well, it's also because who has been the biggest, so far in the whole all of this since it's gone down as the casting of the oops, shouldn't have said that. Carrie Fisher. She's done it about 4 or 5 times. So maybe she's telling her daughter, shh, don't say anything or just say this. But
don't do an interview after a bottle of wine, kid.
Right.
Trust me.
That's it. Because you wind up kissing somebody at Celebration. All right, Mark, what's the last one?
Well, I don't know what you boys are doing on December. I know what you're doing in December. August 14th through the 16th, but we're going to be at D23 Expo. That is the Ultimate Disney Fan event in Anaheim, California. And some rumors now that D23, at least when it comes to Star Wars, that may focus more heavily on Rogue One than on The Force Awakens. Will they show some Force Awakens stuff there? I'm sure they will. But now knowing that it could focus more on Rogue One, will there be footage? What will that presence be? It's interesting to speculate, Christian. What do you think you're going to see at Rogue One at D23?
Well, it's funny because D23, and John, you and I talked about this a little bit, it hasn't been this big thing yet. It's been like, the last 2 years ago was okay.
And if you remember when we were there, we were a little bummed out that there wasn't more Star Wars.
Absolutely, and because the tease, the way that D23, it's essentially it's Disney's Expo, Disney's Con. Now what they did the first day they focused on their animation, and Idina Menzel came out and sang "Let It Go" for the very first time. No one had ever heard it before. She came out, belted out in front of everybody. That part was great. So
Yes.
it's got us going, well, tomorrow's going to be insane. And then for the Marvel stuff that they showed was just all the stuff they showed at Comic-Con. And then Star Wars, they teased you with music, they showed nothing, and then showed Disney's Bears, which did not go over well. But you fast forward now 2 years later. Now there's rumors that Marvel will not have a presence at Comic-Con San Diego this year. I still think they may have something for Star Wars, but it makes sense that they're going to focus heavier on Rogue One, and will be like 3 months away from The Force Awakens at that point. So it makes sense that if they want to get more press on this thing and make this thing more of an event and people take it more serious, that it makes sense that they're going to show Rogue One and a little bit more Force Awakens.
And it's plausible that all the folks at Disney could have taken a step back and looked at Star Wars Celebration and said, let's see what we have here. Let's see what's on the ground here, as opposed to what we need to do at Comic-Con. And maybe what happened at Star Wars Celebration has an influence on them saying, we don't need to go to Comic-Con. I'm sure they're going to do something. There's got to be some sort of reveal at Comic-Con. I still think that's going to happen. But now that they see that Star Wars really carries its own weight when you come to a convention and then you incorporate all the other Disney things, they can make this their home for releasing news. They don't have to rely on any other outside conventions. And so I think that The Force Awakens doesn't need any more press. It's already got all the press. That thing's going to be a huge juggernaut regardless. The fact that they're doing Star Wars anthology films now, it still has a Star Wars name, but I think it's the right time to start getting people excited for Rogue One. And when we saw that Rogue One footage, if you want to call it that 15-second teaser that wasn't footage because they haven't started shooting yet, they announced that they do start shooting this summer, and maybe they'll have some shots ready to show us by August.
I think it makes total sense. What you guys are both saying, I think makes total sense. Like, by the time we get to D23, and it has been underwhelming. Like, let's just call it what it is. We love our friends at Disney. D23 has been underwhelming to
and
this
Disney's
point.
Bears was a really good film.
It
for what
was.
it
It was. Yeah.
But I think you're right, though. By that point, now we're just in the single-digit months away from The Force Awakens. They're probably already, the wheels are probably already in motion of their main big marketing push by that point. There's no point in them doing, there's nothing left to reveal for The Force Awakens come D23. Prime time to start pushing and getting people excited about Rogue One. It just seems to make sense to me. Now, no one's confirmed to us that they are going to do anything Star Wars related D23, but I have been told that this will be the most significant D23 they've done. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything specific, but I think you guys nailed it. It's got to be Rogue One. This is the time to start pushing it, and I think they're going to do it.
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if you get, maybe that's the time when you get a little more cast. Maybe that's the time when you actually hear a little bit more about what the proposed new anthology film is going to be. Like you said, there might be more of a focus now on Star Wars, because going off of what you said, Mark, they saw how successful this Star Wars Celebration was. Now, Star Wars Celebration was always successful to the fans beforehand, but this thing, from being there, the energy in the crowd, this was the best. And not just because I'm a Star Wars diehard fan, this was the best con that I've ever been to in my life. It was the energy in it. It was just the vibe. It was everything about it just felt
the positive feeling that you and I had when we were walking out of Mad Max last night, when everybody was just kind of buzzing. That's the way it felt for 4 days at Star Wars Celebration. And here's something else of note: is that the Force Awakens teaser trailer came out Thanksgiving, right? Which is a little more than a year before the film comes out.
A year and a month.
Now,
or so.
I don't think that that's going to be the same situation with Rogue One, because you don't necessarily want to show a Rogue One teaser when people are 2 weeks away from seeing The Force Awakens. So if they were going to show a teaser, debut a teaser for Rogue One, maybe it's smarter to do it earlier so that the audience isn't like, wait, is that going to be in the movie I'm seeing in a couple weeks?
They will be very early in the production of the film, but then again, Guardians of the Galaxy, they were like 10 days into production of Guardians of the Galaxy when they brought that teaser to Comic-Con for the first time.
And it was solid. It was great. It really was the teaser that they released like 3 or 4 months later.
With very few differences. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's it. That's the Star Wars news. Like I said, slow week, but we have another segment on the show that we get into, and it's pretty simple. It's just called "What's the Deal with Canon?" Everything that's going on in the canon on Star Wars. This is the books. This is the comics. These are the video games. Anything that ultimately ties back into the movies in the Star Wars universe that was rebooted about 2 years ago, and there's some stuff. And if you really want to get a breakdown of what the canon is all about, when we were at Star Wars Celebration, Leland Chee, Pablo Hidalgo, who are the head of Lucasfilm Story Group, those are the guys. Leland Chee's Twitter handle is Holocron Keeper. All right. So these guys did a full canon panel that we were at, and that AMC Jedi Council got a great shout out on. And one of the fans tweeted, it's actually online now. And you can find it. Yeah, it's on YouTube.
That's right. Somebody sent that. Yeah, that's the image they sent to me.
That's it. Yeah. And that's my stupid mug right there. But Adam Perez is the guy who posted it. And and you're allowed to. Lucasfilm totally gives you can sit there. You just can't show footage, obviously. They show footage. But the panels you can do, and he does it. And I'll put a link I'll send it to Dennis, and we'll put it in the description here so you can watch it. Because if you want answers as far as everything going on in canon with the books. And they even addressed John's point. One of the fans of Jedi Council asked him about the multiple layers and can you smell what Campy is cooking? They have all that stuff, and they answered, and I thought they answered really well. And I'm curious to hear what you think about the panel after you watch it. So I just want to give you guys a breakdown there that if you want to watch that, it's on Adam Perez's YouTube channel. Check the link and watch that entire panel. It was a lot of fun.
If you had any doubts about who is taking care of Star Wars and the stories going forward, this panel will do a lot to alleviate your fears, because these fans that lined up to ask questions were asking some hardcore stuff. Right. They really put them in the pressure cooker, and they handled it calmly. They broke it down very succinctly. You can understand what they're saying. So this is a really cool panel to watch, and is knowing Christian as well as I do, that is the best view of him you're ever going to see. It's more the back of the head, where you can't really tell what he looks like.
Oh, it's fun. You know, real quick, Dennis, do you mind bringing up that picture one more time? Or Jonathan, you bring up that picture one more time for the fans. I want to kind of show you who. So if you go on the far left, the lady sitting down, those two ladies right there are from Del Rey. I think all three of them
That's
actually.
the book company.
Yes, Del Rey Book Company, and then the woman next to him is from Lucasfilm and handles the books over at Lucasfilm, and then you have Leland Chee and Pablo Hidalgo right in the center, as they should be, and then the two guys at the very end are from Marvel Comics. So that's everybody who's handling.
It makes sense that
right
the two
now.
guys at the end look the most sketchy.
Right, like in the comics.
We
Great
saw
mustache.
that dude in the mustache literally everywhere I walked. From there, I could go to the bathroom, I could go to Morton Steakhouse. That dude is walking out with a smile on his face, high-fiving fans.
He was awesome, and I asked him about there's an issue of Leia to where I think it's issue 2, where she goes back to Naboo and she looks up and she has a vision of her mom. And I said, was that because of a throwback to the Jedi scene, to where she says when she remembers her mother? He's like, absolutely. And I was like, yes.
He doesn't just look like a character in that board game Guess Who. He really knows what he's talking about when it comes to Star Wars.
But anyway, like I said, if you're curious, you know we talk about canon a lot on this show. You should go and watch that video. And thank you to Adam Perez for making it available for us. All right, Mark, what is the first thing up in the deal with canon?
We have the Vader issue number 5. And you're talking about people who are newer to canon. That would be me in that bunch. And so Christian put a gun to my head and said, if you want to be on the show, you got to read this Vader comic. I am so happy that you made me do that. It was really easy, first of all. Just you can get it on your phone. There's an app. You can scroll through it. It's incredible. I love seeing Darth Vader in his prime. Not Darth Vader when he's newly born Frankenstein. Not even Darth Vader when he's at the end of his career. When you get to see why we feared this guy in the first place. And what struck me about Vader issue number 5 in particular is how much of a purist this dude is when it comes to the laws of the Force and of Jedi. He gets upset when you try to cheat the system. That was really, you kind of sympathize with Vader a little bit.
It's funny though, too, because the way that it's working for me right now, as far as my favorites, there are 4 series right now, which would be the Vader series, the Kanan series, the Star Wars series, and the Leia series. If I'm ranking them right now, for me, it's Kanan is my favorite, then Vader, then Star Wars, then Leia. But this past issue of Vader got me back on track and almost making it my favorite. I like those droids are back again, the evil C-3PO and R2-D2, which are great. But there's something that happens, and I don't want to spoil it for you guys if you're reading it, but there's something that happens inside of this issue that at the very end you say, well, wait a minute. If that happens, how does that play in the ultimate forming of everything else in this universe? Can that come back to play in The Force Awakens? Can it come back to play in a anthology film? And to what extent was the Empire working on stuff? That's really all I want to say because I don't want to spoil it. But I enjoyed the issue overall.
And watching Vader and Palpatine's relationship and how it evolved, I'm still reading it, and I'm like, how are they going to patch things up to the point that they get to in The Empire Strikes Back and ultimately into Return of the Jedi? Because right now, Darth Vader is not just the default heir to everything. He's got to earn that role, and he's finding out just how hard it is and just how much competition there is to be that top apprentice dog. And it's fun to watch him go through this.
John, how far are you in the series right now? Because I know you didn't get to this one.
I am only up to issue. I keep saying episode.
I do too.
I think I got that off of you.
Me.
I'm only up to issue 2. I read to when we got introduced to the psychotic droids.
Okay.
And I love. That's the thing. It's my favorite of the 4 things so far, and I've just not had a chance to catch up.
Right.
On the
busy man,
which is actually kind of a good thing for me because it's going to allow me to binge watch, if you will. It's going to allow me to like knock out like 3 issues in a row.
If you can put down your dice in your Star Wars game for 5 seconds,
I will never put down my
book.
dice.
I love the way they tie stuff in, and they're beginning to tie things in. Like this one ties into Star Wars, to the Star Wars comic. I think it'll tie into some novels here and there. So right now, the story group seems to have it under control, and there hasn't been any flubs yet. We'll see. I know you're skeptical, but we shall see.
I don't think we're going to see any flubs for a couple of years.
Yeah,
but the flubs will come.
The flubs will come. Okay, so Mark, what's next?
Well, reading Darth Vader issue number 5 was enough reading for this guy for the month, and so now Christian is going to give us a mini report on Heir to the Jedi. Christian, you just read this book, and this is the story of Luke Skywalker immediately after Return of the Jedi. Is that correct?
No. This is after New Hope.
After A New Hope. That's right.
Yeah, Tim. He doesn't know yet how to do a lot of things. He doesn't. Obi-Wan has kind of abandoned him. This is before Hoth. This is before Obi-Wan has appeared to him, and before he's told anything about Yoda. And what's cool? There are some cool things in this book for sure. But the first, again, going back to my favorites and ranking stuff too. I want to rank these books first before I get into this one. Lords of the Sith is by far my favorite canon book so far. It might be even combining it with Legends. I'd put because I know we don't talk.
See, that excites me because I know how much you love Tarkin.
I love Tarkin.
I love Tarkin. So hearing you say that you like Lords of the Sith even more.
And James Luceno wrote
I
Darth
got it loaded
Plagueis.
up now. I'm ready to get started on it. So I got it loaded up. So I'm very excited.
You should. And James Luceno, who wrote Darth Plagueis, is my favorite author. But
Thing in the jar.
It is. But Paul Kemp, man, Paul Kemp's up there. Paul Kemp is up there because he knows how to write Emperor and Vader very well. And you talk about the Vader, even though he's brand new Frankenstein Vader, you see all the stuff he's going through. But that we talked about that already. That's my favorite. Then Tarkin, then New Dawn, and then Heir to the Jedi. And the reason why it's so low for me on my list is because I have the same problems with it that I had with the initial issues of Star Wars, as to where it's kind of beating you over the head with the old, I got to go to the Tashi station. I have a bad feeling about this. And it's just like, hey, I know Star Wars, see? And it didn't feel real. It didn't feel like I was reading, as where I'm reading Lords of the Sith, I hear Vader's voice. I hear Palpatine. I'm not listening to audiobook. I'm reading it, and I hear it.
Oh, yeah, that would have been cheating.
Right.
Yeah.
And I hear it, and I just feel it. And it's like almost like I'm not reading, like I'm watching it. Here I was finding myself struggling a little bit, and the story itself isn't bad. It almost suffers to what like the prequels did. Where good story, execution okay. I will say this, that the last like probably 5 or 6 chapters, the last 5 chapters gets back on course, and the ending is actually really good because Luke does struggle, and you remember when he learns in Hoth how to get the.
It's a question on everybody's mind.
How did he learn how to do it?
He had to learn that
He's
trick.
practicing, and there's like this love interest in between, and there's this. And I thought
with another sister. Yeah.
No, cousin.
Oh, sorry.
Cousin. But I really wanted to love.
He's a farmer,
this.
you know.
He is.
Simple guy. Look, there's not a lot of options on Tatooine. Okay, we farm moisture.
Yeah. Archie, turn around for a second.
Can I ask you about this book? Is the most intriguing prospect to me when you told me that this was coming out is that it's going to be written from the perspective of Luke Skywalker in a journalistic, almost the way that Jonathan Harker is the guy writing Bram Stoker's Dracula, where you get to read this guy's thoughts, and that's that's who's telling the story. When I picked this thing up at Barnes & Noble, we were hanging out before a screening, and I decided I'd thumb through it, and I got the beating over the head with the Star Wars references, and I don't know if that's just to get the reader into it early on, because I didn't end up reading the rest of the book, but it didn't feel like the Luke Skywalker I knew, but it did. It was close enough to where I think it could get me into the story.
I don't think it's terrible. I don't. It just didn't hook me the way I wanted it to, because I wanted to know. Yes, it's written as Luke had written this journal, and you're reading Luke's thoughts. I didn't really feel like I was reading Luke's thoughts. I felt like I was reading an author trying to put together Luke's thoughts.
Well, you won't say it. I will. It is terrible.
Okay.
I couldn't. I had to put that after. Now, granted, an argument could be made that John, once you get into chapter 3, it really starts to pick up and get good. And I wouldn't know that, because after chapter 2, I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
You Ellised it.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not reading another page of this, because it was so bad. To me, it felt like bad fan fiction. It felt, you know how you just said, look, I know Star Wars. That's you just expressed it the way I've been trying to figure out. How would I say it? You just nailed it.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it was like, this does not feel like Star Wars to me. This doesn't feel like Luke to me. It feels like somebody who's writing fan fiction about Luke and whatever. And I was like, after 2 chapters, I'm just like, I can't do it. Life is short. I got to move on. I got to do something else.
It does get better. It does get better. It's not to where I would say go back and read it. Like, if you bailed on like Tarkin, or if you bailed on Lord of the Sith,
I couldn't put Tarkin down.
I would say go back and read it. But so I can get it, and I think I'm pretty sure from an interview that I read with Shelley Shapiro, who's the editor over at Del Rey. I think that this book was already part of a series that was part of the old, what is now Legends. And then when they picked it up and started, they said, well, does this book that we had planned, can this fit into the new canon? And I think the story group okayed it and said, yeah, it could.
Which is consistent with what they said a long time ago, that the story group, even though all the Legend stuff is now officially not canon, the story group is totally free to pick and choose stuff out of the Legend stuff and bring it into canon if they so choose, when they feel it fits.
And that was my big question too, is like, as a fan of Star Wars, do you see anything in this particular novel? The way it's written or the way that they tell the story is one thing, but is there anything in here that you read that and you're like, oh, that's going to be canon? Or do you see stuff and you're like, oh, that's exciting that is now in the universe?
No, there's nothing in there that I go, come on, you can't, I can't believe, like when they had in the the Thrawn trilogy about the chocolate milk or something else.
There was chocolate milk as opposed to blue milk.
The chocolate milk.
More familiar.
And he caught hell for it. But this, there's nothing in here. There's nothing in here that I go, oh man, I can't believe they did that. Doesn't make any sense. No, and there's actually something really cool with the lightsabers when he's learning about the lightsabers. There are some cool moments in the book. That's all I'll say. But if you're asking me, because I get questions all the time on Twitter, which I love, by the way, ask me anytime you want. About which books to read. What about Heir to the Jedi? It's always my 4th choice out of 4 books. So
that's 4th out of 4.
But that's it. Okay. And that's the end of the canon. Like I said, short stuff today. This part of the show, this is one of our favorites. We started this episode 1, and here we are. Man, I think we're on like episode 8 or 9 now.
You're getting old, man.
I know. This is Address the Council. Now, what is Address the Council? Every single week, one of our council members will have a topic that he wants to bring to both us and the council out there watching. And it's just thoughts. It's things that have been on our mind and things we want to get out there to the public, the council. And today it is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I think I can guess what you want to talk about. But you've been wanting to do this since before we even had this show. When it was a limited series.
We conceived of this show, I thought this is something we've got to do. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, it is my privilege to come before you today to talk to you about taking your sweaty nerddom of Star Wars to the next level. To the next level.
Yippee!
Y'all Padawans want to get out of that speeder and just get into the real, like into an X-Wing? Here we go.
Like Dennis says, this is the nerdiest show
This
on
is
the
the
internet.
nerdiest show on AMC Movie News. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. I like to tell you, I started this when I was 6. I didn't. I started this when I was in college. Me and a bunch of buddies in college, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, because what woman is this guy going to get? We would get together in our dorm, and we had a little ritual. And we were ready to start our game, Star Wars the role-playing game, Star Wars D6. We would close the door and say, in one unified voice, real world be gone. And we close that door and we would play Star Wars the role-playing game, folks. This is it right here. This is actually the 2nd edition. There was another edition of the book that came out called Second Edition Special second edition, special edition, I think it was called. Anyway, where it's got the Millennium Falcon on the cover. But basically, it's the same book, same rules. I want to just go over with you guys quick. This is the original West End Games D6 role-playing game system, and out of all the Star Wars role-playing games that have come and gone, I have never seen one that even comes close to this. Where does the beauty in it lie? It lies in its simplicity, and within simplicity lies the birth of creativity. So I want to just, for a few minutes here, give you guys an overview of how this Star Wars role-playing game, if you really want to immerse into the Star Wars universe and get into Star Wars with you and your buddies, plan a night. Me and Maud play a game. I think we've always talked about getting a game and then recording it and like maybe even live stream it for people to watch us playing Star Wars role-playing game. But anyway, I want to give you the basics of, now listen, this game is now out of print. But you can still go on Amazon.com, find these books. Star Wars, you're going to look for West End Games, Star Wars role-playing game. And if you can't find it there, just get online, go to Google, search for it, and you'll find PDFs of it and things like that. So you can still play this game. And it's super simple. I'm going to introduce you to just a couple of concepts in 5 minutes that will give you a huge jump forward that you guys should just be able to pick up a book, pick up the PDF, whatever, and you'll be playing Star Wars role-playing game in like 10 minutes. And here are the basic principles. The Star Wars role-playing game is what's known as a D6 system. I'm so into this.
I feel like there should be a number that flashes, and if you call in the next 10 minutes, you get the gaming book, you get the dice, you get John Campy himself for one night.
And it's autographed. All right, the reason it's called the D6 system is because a lot of role-playing games, you'll know, will have like 15 different types of dice, right? Like the old Dungeons & Dragons game. This game system uses exclusively six-sided dice. That's it. Everything is related to six-sided dice. So here's the basic principle. Let's get up on here for a second. The basic principle is this. Everything has a numerical value, and those numbers are related to dice. So you have all of your attributes. I happen to have right here a Star Wars role-playing game character sheet. And in the character sheet, you have your things like you'd expect in all role-playing games: dexterity, knowledge, mechanical skill, technical skill, perception, strength. Now, within all these attributes, you get certain skills. Like under dexterity, you would get blaster skill. You would get a lightsaber skill under dexterity, things like that, right? Everything gets a numerical value. So if you have a dexterity of 4, what that means is you get 4 six-sided dice. If you have a numerical value of 3, that means when you're doing something with that skill, you get to use 3 six-sided dice. So that's the first principle you got to understand, that the numbers equal the number of dice you get to use, all six-sided. Now here's the second principle. Everything in the game is about action versus resistance. So I've given these two guys some dice.
Yeah.
So let's say, for an example here, that we've got Christian's bounty hunter who is trying to hunt down Mark's smuggler. And he tracks him down to a cantina. Okay, so, and they're about to have it out. Christian he's going to take a shot at Mark. He declares he's going to take a shot at Mark. And so the game master say, okay, well, what's your blaster skill? And Christian looks at his character sheet, goes, my blaster skill is, let's say, 4D. That means you get to pick up 4 dice. Now then I'll go to Mark, say, Mark, what are you doing? Are you just going to hope he misses, or are you going to try to dodge? And he says, I'm going to dodge. So he looks at his skill of dodge, and his dodge, let's say, is 3D.
Oh,
so you get to take 3 dice.
Oh, God.
So now here's how this principle works. And this is the underlying principle that works throughout the whole game. So the resistance rolls what we're going to do first. So you have a dodge of 3. So roll your dodge.
Okay.
So you roll it, and your total is
Pretty good dodge. That's
Pretty good dodge.
That's a 12. That's a 12.
So he rolls a 12. Now what happens is 12 is the number that Christian has to try to equal or beat using his blaster skill. His blaster skill is 4D, we've said, so he gets to roll 4 dice to try to hit 12. So he rolls his 4 dice, and he rolls...
No, sir. No, sir.
That is a 8,
8,
9,
9.
10, 11.
So he misses. So the dodge beat the blaster skill. He wins.
Athletic.
Now. So that's the one thing. There's action and resistance, and then the last principle you have to understand is result. Let's, for argument's sake, say that Christian rolled a 13 and he actually hit Mark. Well, now you have to figure out, okay, he hit him, but what does that mean? What happens? So this is where results come in. So now we're going to look at Christian's blaster, whatever blaster he's using. And we see that his blaster has a strength of 3D. It's not a strong blaster. It's a little one he keeps in his sock. So he's got a blaster that has a strength of 3D. We go to Mark, and he's wearing a body armor, has a strength resistance of also 3D. So now we always start with the result with the resistance thing. So you roll your resistance to it. So
Okay.
you roll 3D.
Shouldn't be a problem here.
And you roll 10. So then Christian takes his 3 dice, rolls his blaster result, and
That's
he
gonna
hits,
hurt. You got an 11.
He hits an 11.
Oh god.
Now, so we're going to get a result. Now, if Christian's number was lower than Mark's, that means, yeah, he got hit, but basically he just bounced off him. Nothing happens. But his roll is higher. Now, inside the book or inside the chart, let's go to this camera over here for a second. You're going to get your result chart. And what that result chart tells us is, hey, if you beat it by 0 to 3, the character is stunned. Christian's roll beat Mark's roll by 1. That means Mark's character is stunned. That means for the rest of his actions this turn and next turn, he'll get to use -1 dice. From
So no
whatever his rolls
jokes
are.
for like an hour.
No jokes for an hour. So
Shaken, not stirred.
So listen, seriously, if you understand those basic principles, the number equals the number of dice you get to use. There's an action phase where you take what your attacking thing is, what you're trying to do. Let's say you're trying to jump across a chasm. The game master says the difficulty is 2 dice. He rolls, got the number 5. You have a jumping skill of 5 dice. Let's say you're really athletic. You got to beat that number. If you do, you accomplish it. Then the results. If you're shooting at something, like Christian was shooting at Mark, if you hit him, you roll results. The strength of the blaster versus the strength of the armor. If you just understand those 3 principles, then you get to really focus just on the story and the fun of the adventure of the game. It is an absolute blast when you get together with a couple of friends,
Pun intended.
maybe a couple of adult beverages. It's an absolute blast. It is so much fun. Maud and I have such a great time. We play. Ray has played with us. I've got a couple of gaming groups to play. But like I said, you can find it on Amazon to get the physical books. You can find the PDFs online. I got the game. You don't have to have the Game Master screen. I just find the Game Master screen really handy to have because it gives you instant access to a whole bunch of just facts and figures and numbers that you need. But once again, all these numbers are nothing to be intimidated by because they're all based on those 3 simple principles. If you get those principles, you and your friends are going to be up and running in a game, a Star Wars role-playing game. Put on the Cantina music in the background as you're playing. You guys are going to have a blast. So go, and maybe one of these days we'll actually get a game going with the AMC Movie News crew and we'll stream it.
Oh, now I want to win.
Yeah.
Can I ask? I have many questions. The one that I really want to get quickly is because Star Wars is such a force in the universe again. Is there a new version of the role-playing game, or are there talks that you're going to have a new role-playing game? Because it seems like you shouldn't have to rely on something that's out of print if you want to continue in the Star Wars universe, or they just reinvigorate that game and start adding on to it.
There are other versions of the Star Wars role-playing game. West End Games, which is the company that did this original D6 system, they went out of business, I believe, at one point, like 15 years ago. So there are I believe there have been 2 completely new versions of the game. Another company did it, then another company got the rights. And there's a new version that just came out like a year or 2 ago. But like I said, the D6 system to me has always been the best system because of the simplicity of it. Allows you to focus not on percentages and numbers and it allows you to focus on the adventure of the game. And it's so much fun. And like I said, because it's out of print, find some PDFs, find this book on Amazon. You'll be up and good to go. But like I said, any Star Wars role-playing game is going to be great to immerse you more into the world of Star Wars, but I just happen to think the West End Games D6 one is the best one I've ever played.
Well, and also speaking of role-playing games, but not necessarily the one John's talking about. We're talking about, as far as Knights of the Republic on the consoles.
Oh, yes.
Now, there's also, I got into it, not like a fierce Twitter war, but I just there's something, I had a vision. Someone said what Luke had on Hoth with Obi-Wan, and Knights of the Republic, I just feel it in my blood that it's coming. And I had this conversation on Twitter, like, I don't know if it's ever going to happen. Nah, it's going to happen.
Oh, and hey, just one last thing too. Getting back to canon, this is an interesting thing. A lot of things that happen in this book here, in the Star Wars role-playing game, and a lot of the things that ships, weapons, things like that, things that are now considered canon and that we understand certain names of planets and how certain things work, actually all came from this book. And if you read that book, How Star Wars Conquered the Galaxy, they actually talk about this particular game, this particular Western D6 game in that book, and the influence it had on what we know as canon today. So there's another little connection for you.
All right. So there you go, guys. And make sure you comment below. Have you ever played a Star Wars role-playing role-playing game before, whether it be on the console, whether it be the one that John was just talking about. And from hearing John should be working for that company right now, or try to get him back in business. And what'd you think of the pitch by Obi-Wan Kenobi and the RPG?
I was very impressed.
Yeah. All right.
Virginity for life.
Now it's up to you guys. You guys have addressed, like I said, today we were a little shorter on movie news and Canon talk. So we figured let's dedicate the rest of the show to you guys. You've sent in so many questions via tweets, and we were going to answer a bunch of them, as many as we could get to today, and then we'll just address your questions. So what is the first one today, guys?
The first one comes from at Hamza Noman. Christian Harlov, I am completely new to the Star Wars world, so how should I proceed with the movies? Thanks.
It's a great. You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's funny. I would tell you, and every time we mention the movies, we always mention the theatrical released movies. We never mention, and honestly, on purpose, I think sometimes, is the Clone Wars movie. It was theatrically released. Yes, and I'm a big fan of the Clone Wars series. I really dislike the movie, and I think that I try to tell people to avoid that movie because it's going to taint their experience in Clone Wars. But as far as the actual 6 theatrically released movies that we all kind of know, I got into a conversation with my buddy who's going to show his kids for the first time too. He's like, "How should I show them?" My wife, same thing. I would start them with 4, 5, and 6. I really would start with 4, 5, and 6. And I know, John, you're going to say just 4, 5, and 6.
There's no point in me even addressing this. You know exactly.
I know, and I get it. But I think that if you want to learn all of the history, the good and the bad, you do 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, and 3. What I would tell you is do 4, 5, and 6, do 3, and you could skip 1 and 2. But I know there's some people out there who like them, and that's fine. You might be one of those people when you watch them. Who knows? But I would say, for me personally, it's 4, 5, and 6.
All right, so let's say that your character has 2 kids. Now, each one of those kids has a dexterity that's a 3D. I used to talk about this in stand-up a lot, too, is that in what order, it's a very existential question to ask a parent, is what order do you show your kids the Star Wars trilogy? Because there's a risk that your kids could fall in love with Jar Jar Binks, and that's a failure as a parent, right? However, I think that you can show them the prequels, but I think you kick off with the classic trilogy for this reason, is that the reveal of Darth Vader is not going to have the same impact if you already know that dude came from being a Skywalker. There's something so cool and so pure about when you discover that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father, because you just do not see that coming.
Shakespearean, it really is.
So now, because it's so in our culture now, you really got to shield your kids from a lot of stuff if you want them to have that same, oh my God, experience, but I think it's worth it.
There is one other way to introduce them to the Star Wars universe, and this is the way I ultimately told my friend to do it. I said, and actually the way a friend of the show, Miri Jedikin, did for her kids was that Rebels first. Rebels, to a kid, if a younger kid, I'm actually going to show my daughter Rebels first because it doesn't ruin the surprise. It does get you into the Star Wars feel. And I think by the time we get to Vader in season 2, it's going to set up to where he ultimately shows up in episode 4. So I would say to kids and younger kids, like, because my friend's son is 4. So I would say Rebels first, and then if you can take what Vader's all about, then show him 4, and it won't ruin what you were talking about.
I think that's a very good point. If you're a parent with kids, well, first of all, if you're a parent with kids and you're just talking about the movies straight up, right, and you're asking which movies do I show them, the first question you have to answer is, do you actually love your kids? And if you do, it's just 4, 5, and 6. If you want them growing up with, particularly harsh narcotics problems, by all means, show them the prequels. But no, I love what you're saying about if I'm a parent with a kid and I want to introduce the kid, you know what? A year ago, I would say this is sacrilegious, but it's true. If you got like a 6-year-old kid, 7-year-old kid, and you want to introduce them to the Star Wars universe, I agree. I think Rebels is where you start. It's not even one of the movies, but I think you start with Rebels because that's a great introduction to it.
And can I tell you what I love? One of the things I love most about doing this show is that how many people have said over and over again, the amount of tweets and emails that I've gotten about, I didn't want to give Rebels a shot because it looks so kiddie. And then you, Campy, and Maud, and Elsie, you guys have talked about Rebels so much. I gave it a shot. And I didn't like those first 3 episodes. But then, man, do I love this show. And like I said, and I said it before, if you're hesitant about Rebels, watch season 2 trailer first. Then see if that interests you. And if it does, then watch season 1. Okay, what's next?
Fernando Keynes writes, is there any film, series, book, or comic that hasn't been announced yet that you would want to see or read?
I've got an idea for a book that I'd love to read, and I think I've talked to you about it before, John, and that is The Last Days of Alderaan. I want to read a book about everything that was going on, the politics, the plans, like everything that was going on the planet of Alderaan. Were there any Jedi on Alderaan? Like, what was happening on Alderaan before? And it just blew up in like the last pages, and then there was silence. And it's like I could hear that book. I read the book. I want to know what's happening. I think eventually we'll see Alderaan. I actually think we're going to see Alderaan in Rogue One, even if it's a scene. But I want to know more about Alderaan. I don't think we've ever really explored it before. So that's me, Mark.
Yeah, I would go back to the Old Republic because I want to see something more in that universe, and I'd like to see a film that focuses on that because I know so much about the current universe that's surrounded around the Skywalkers, and I want to start to expand out of that. But I want it to make it to the big screen too. I don't want to have to just read about it. I want my eyes to be able to witness this in person because unlike even The Force Awakens, where I'm like, oh, I love that guy, that's a new guy. Everything is going to be so new and fresh, even though it's called Old Republic. So that would be my answer.
I like your idea. I don't want to see or read anything about things that are already in the Star Wars universe. I want new stories, and I don't think we have to go back to the Old Republic. Although I am fascinated about some stories in the Old Republic. Look, the Star Wars galaxy is huge and vast. Tell a great story that happens, post the fall of the Empire on some random outer rim world that has nothing to do with the Skywalkers or whatever. I love your idea, though, about Alderaan. It reminds me a lot of, remember that Battlestar Galactica spin-off show, Caprica?
Yeah.
Where you're watching the story about this whole world, even though this world is doomed. I think there could be a really cool same feeling of that. So I love your idea about Alderaan.
That's how I feel when I'm watching Rebels and I see Ezra. Every time that kid pops on the screen, I'm like, I don't know if you're going to make it.
Something bad's going to happen to this
all
kid.
those people, man.
Yep,
all of them. That's another
coming.
actually spin-off movie, too. I think that Kanan is becoming a character that, and we mentioned this before on this show, I was shocked with how much cosplay of Kanan there was and how popular he's becoming because as a character in general, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him, even if it's a cameo in Rogue One, but I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years if Kanan gets his own anthology movie, depending on how his storyline goes. I don't know. He's becoming one of those characters that has become very popular with the fans.
And your daughter's going to fall in love with him, then they're going to kill them all off. So
what's
have
next?
fun with that. Nathan Johnson writes, what's the one story you want to bring back into the canon universe more than any other one?
John, I'll let you go first because I know where you're going.
It's the Thrawn trilogy. That was going to cause some problems though. Like,
would you put it in Aftermath?
Because
you could still do it if you put it in Aftermath.
You could still do it, but you'd have to tweak it significantly. I mean, it doesn't fit in with the current canon. There are some direct contradictions at this point. You'd have to tweak it heavily, but just that character of Thrawn and the way that story was written and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, I've always gone back to it. So at the risk of sounding like a broken record player, the Thrawn trilogy.
Well, I think the Thrawn trilogy, it would be very interesting because, and I remember you and I talking about this a very long time ago about when they announced that the old stories are legends, but they could cherry pick and they could put stuff. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Thrawn makes an appearance in Aftermath. And if you don't know, well, what the hell is Aftermath? I keep talking about it. Aftermath is going to be the first novel that takes place after Return of the Jedi, and it comes out in September. And I think all of us are.
It's supposed to be like immediately after Return of the Jedi.
Right afterwards.
Yeah.
So, I believe it's like a trilogy of books here that's going to ultimately lead into the events of Episode 7.
The cover is even of that Death Star blowing up.
Right. So I wouldn't be surprised if Admiral Thrawn or someone like Admiral Thrawn shows up in this book to see, like, this is who they had to overcome, because this is 30 years we're talking about.
Yeah.
So they had to overcome something. There's a reason why, if Luke did go into hiding or wherever he is, why that happened. So I wouldn't be surprised. I would like to see Thrawn come back. For me, even though I know the easy answer here is Plagueis, because what's going to happen, I think that we're going to hear more about him in general, as I've made it very clear on this show. The Darth Bane. The Darth Bane books by Drew Karpyshyn were epic and dark, and
hasn't he already been brought into canon through
the
Clone Wars? Yeah, the character has. Yeah,
but
so
he
he's
has
in canon.
Plagueis through Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
those characters are both canon, but the story that Drew Karpyshyn painted, who actually was the writer on BioWare with Darth Revan and Knights of the Republic, did this trilogy of the Darth Bane books, which are incredible. I couldn't put them down, and how Bane was set up and where he came, and he ultimately created the rule of two and how that all came to be. I'd like to see that storyline and the way that Drew made it happen. I'd like to see those events actually be made canon. But Mark,
I read 2 trilogies back before I led this rock and roll lifestyle. One was the Kevin J. Anderson trilogy, which looking back on it was a little more kiddie. The Timothy Zahn trilogy is another one that I read, The Heir to the Empire. So anything that's included in those books, I think deserves to be in canon because those, even if you don't love what's happening in those novels, they kept Star Wars fandom alive in a time when you really needed it, when you didn't have all these new movies coming out, when that was all we had to cling to. It was that, and it was Campia playing the Star Wars role-playing game in his dorm. But that's
true.
It's stuff like that that kept the lore alive for future generations.
Well, there's a lot of characters that people are going to want to probably putting in the
a lot of votes for Rogue Squadron.
Dash Rendar, Mara Jade, which Mara Jade, a version of her, whether or not it's actually called Mara Jade, I'll even say take it to the bank that Sarah Michelle Gellar is going to be playing a version of her as the Inquisitor here.
I think ultimately it's going to be revealed that her real name at some point in season 2
is actually Mara Jade.
Interesting.
Okay, Mark, what's next?
Nicholas Gray has a great one. Keeping with tradition, will we hear the Wilhelm scream in the continuing Star Wars trilogy?
Yes. Yes, and I would be very upset if they didn't. But what it looks like, J.J. Abrams has everything you see so far. It's like, well, I love that, so that's going to be in there. I'm a Star Wars fan, so that will be this will be in there.
It's as certain as lens flares.
Yeah,
it will be there.
I think you already showed it to us in the scene in the trailer. That's what I think when you see that stormtrooper, you get shot, and he flips upside down. That's your Wilhelm scream moment. That's when it's happening. Take it to the bank.
All right, what's next?
At Fred_N, is there a chance Luke trained Leia in the Force during that period between Episode 6 and 7?
I actually think that goes back to what we were just talking about in the Thrawn trilogy, because in the Thrawn trilogy he does. He helps as much as he can, and I think that in Aftermath and in other places you'll find out that there were times. I think she's going to be really busy. I think she's going to be the queen of whatever the New Republic or whatever it is. So I think she's got some training. It would be silly if they just like, well, yeah, I know I have the Force, but I didn't even. I gave it up. I tried it once, and I figured the blue milk was better.
Han wasn't a fan.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, you're off doing your Force training or whatever.
Right. I don't know if we're going to hear about him training her in the movies, though. I wouldn't be surprised if you heard about that in the books. Well, you may throw a.
Well, I think that's why they tease us with that Luke Skywalker voiceover. Is that he says his sister has it. Like, what cool is having it if it's just untapped potential? He says my sister has it. I think that they probably are going to expound upon that she not only is running the new rebellion from an administrative standpoint, but she also is able to at least move some stuff with her.
First of all, I believe she's going to be known as Mon Organa Solo in this, but. I think what we're probably, and this is pure speculation, nothing to back this up with. I think it's going to be at some point Luke tried to train her, but her responsibilities to the new government and the systems that the rebellion has liberated and stuff like that, being the head of government in some things, it's overwhelming, and I think it's going to be passed on to her children.
Yeah.
So that's where I think it's really going to go.
All right, what's next?
At Black Rice 19 writes, is the Star Wars Christmas special canon? Thoughts on the special as well?
I'm quitting if it's not. Well, remember, everybody, like as much as we crap on in fun, the Star Wars Christmas special, don't forget, that's where Boba Fett came from.
Yeah, it's true.
Boba Fett's first appearance was in the Star Wars Christmas special.
Yep.
In animated form.
Yeah.
And so Boba and Luke keep Boba. Anyway.
It's garbage.
Yes.
And,
yes. Totally.
And it is not canon. They talked about it actually in that in that panel. I believe they talked about that. And the Ewok movies. Remember those Ewok with Battle for Endor?
Oh, Battle for Endor, baby.
Also not canon. And I love the way Leland Shee answered this. Someone said, "Are those Ewok movies canon?" No.
Wilford Brimley.
Where's Wilford Brimley? Come on.
So there you go. All right, what's next?
Mateus Gabriels writes, "Hi, I love the show. Here's my question. Is Darth Vader's helmet a treasure relic in The Force Awakens?"
I think so.
I believe so. I'd be shocked at this point if it's not.
It looks like it was taken. It was hunted because that thing was in a pyre on Endor, so it was found somewhere. I think by Kylo Ren. Looks like it. Maybe not. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a relic.
I'm a big sports memorabilia fan, so I'll like hang jerseys on my wall and stuff. I don't think this is just that. It's not like you go to Applebee's and it's like, oh, that's Darth Vader's helmet. Like, you're not just going there to have it. You're going to use it. There is something going on with that helmet. I think that's clear from the trailer and also from that concept art that got released. Maybe that's why they put that scene in the trailer, because that concept art did get leaked.
Maybe.
So they're like, yeah, let's go ahead and give this to the fans. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it's a flashback.
Oh, I think it is.
Maybe it means nothing. I think it has something to do with The Force Awakens.
I agree with you also because of the lightsaber. If you look at that saber they showed, that's Vader's lightsaber too, man. So Vader, in some way or another, I don't think he's going to be back, but his presence, him, is going to have whether this guy is trying to be is a copycat killer. I don't know, whatever he is. He's trying to be Vader, but Vader will be referenced for sure in the helmet as well. Okay, last one.
Sabin Erdman writes, if you read the books, comics, and TV shows, do you think you would miss anything if you skipped the prequel movies? I don't. And to clarify, he says, I mean only the canon stuff, not Legends.
John, why don't you answer this one first? Because I know I'm curious how you feel about it. I know you don't like the prequels, but if someone new to it that
let's put it this way. What I do know is that the predominant feeling around Disney of the prequels is quite negative. That much I know. So my feeling is that, will you miss out on anything in The Force Awakens? Remember, we have not seen The Force Awakens, so we can't say this definitively. But as somebody who's not seen The Force Awakens, as sure as I can be, I can tell you this, that you will not be lost watching The Force Awakens if you've never seen a minute of the prequels. I know that. So there'll be references to it that you will get had you seen the prequels, but there'll be nothing substantive or really important. So if you go into The Force Awakens having not watched the prequels, you're okay. It's not like they're not going to contradict the prequels. And if you want to watch the prequels, all 6 films before watching it, that's not going to hurt you. That's only going to enhance your viewing probably of The Force Awakens by all means. But I feel quite sure that you're not going to miss out on anything if you didn't see the prequels.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't necessarily know if he was asking just for Force Awakens though too. I think he means in general though as well too, because I agree. I think that for Force Awakens, no, and I even think that for the movies, but I would say the Clone Wars. I say because for me,
you have to see the prequels if you're going to watch the Clone Wars.
No, but I'm saying he's saying in general. Like if you read the books, comics, and TV shows, would he miss anything if he just skipped the movies in general, the prequel movies? If you skipped episode 1, 2, and 3, but you read all the books, you watched all the Clone Wars, you watched all Rebels. No, I really don't think you would. Not just because, and even being that I don't mind Revenge of the Sith. I just think for me, in the overall 6 seasons of the Clone Wars, Anakin is more set up and goes back to that conversation that Obi-Wan was having with Luke in Episode 4 about your father was a best fighter pilot in the galaxy and a good friend. I saw that in the Clone Wars. I felt that in the Clone Wars, and that all tied into it. It doesn't tie. I think that if you watched 1, 2, and 3, and then watched that scene and missed the Clone Wars, you'd be like, But if you watch all that stuff, you get it more, and I think you understand Maul and everything too. So no, I don't. If you watch Clone Wars, I don't think you would miss out. But
you should watch the prequels. I mean, just being a Star Wars fan alone, you should see the movies that the guy who created Star Wars made and directed and all that stuff. Are they great? No. Are there redeeming values to each one of them? I certainly think so. I think that there's cool things in each one of those films you can take away from it. Plus, when you're looking at overall canon, yes, there's a lot of stuff that's included in there. Now, when you go see The Force Awakens, I think it might be, again, to bring back Mad Max Fury Road, is you don't need to have seen those other Mad Maxes to enjoy this one, but it might enhance your enjoyment. Right. And just being Star Wars, like you need to go through what we all went through with the prequels in order to really understand just how excited we are for The Force Awakens and a movie that appears to be of the quality that we hope it is.
If anything, I can say that is one of the very good things about the prequels. It has made me all the more excited for The Force Awakens.
To get the feel back. And go back to what you're saying real quick about how Disney's maybe not trying to forget about the prequels. I felt that celebration because, like I said, when you saw Kanan and everything too, and you did see Clone Wars stuff, prequel stuff was not there was no presence for the prequels there, and I've said that already. But anyway,
J.J. Abrams even said that too. They didn't crap on the prequels directly, but they also said that they wanted to get the old school lived in feel of the original trilogy, which is pretty much saying we don't want to use a lot of green screen and a lot of CGI because we saw how that went down.
But it's all. But Mark's right though; it is all part of the universe, and like we've said many times, and we know there are many people out there who do and did grow up on the prequels. So you might be one of those people who winds up enjoying it. But that's it. That is this week's Council. I'd like to thank my esteemed council today. First, filling in for the Queen, he is Mark2D2. Mark, where can they find you?
At 5150 Ellis on Twitter and Instagram. Ask me all your Star Wars canon questions, because if I don't have the answer, I'll make something up. And I'm at the Pasadena Ice House this weekend doing stand-up comedy Friday and Saturday.
And Obi-Wan Kenobi setting up his base again. Where can they find you?
My role says you can find me on Twitter and on Facebook, simply at John Campia.
And for me, I am Christian Harloff, a.k.a. Darth Harloff. Just follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Christian Harloff. And make sure what you guys have been doing, first of all, has been so great, is you have been sharing this show. You've been tell your hardcore Star Wars fans about this show. Tell people who are not hardcore fans about it. And if they want to learn more about it, this is the place to find it. Thank you for all your support. Keep following a hashtag AMC Jedi Council. Get your question on the air. We'll be back next week. May the Force be with you.